The sun rose slowly over the red dust village of Kisumba, where life moved with the rhythm of poverty and prayers. In one corner of the village, in a crumbling mud house with a leaky roof and silence too heavy for her age, lived Amara, a 19-year-old, blind girl whose eyes had never seen the sunrise, yet her heart could feel every part of it. She was born blind. Her mother died giving birth to her. Her father, a drunk who cursed the day she was born, never spoke to her with kindness. Amara's world was full of darkness, but not just because of her eyes. It was because of how the world treated her, as a burden, a curse, a girl not even worth pity. She moved around using a wooden stick, and she knew her village by sounds: goats bleating, children laughing, market women yelling prices, and her father's voice, mostly slurred and angry. One day the silence in their home was broken by something different. Her father came home early, not drunk and not alone. "Amara," he said. That alone shocked her. He hadn't called her name in weeks. She tilted, her head listening. "This man here is going to change your life," he said with a smirk. She could smell the scent of rich cologne. It didn't belong in her house, too clean, too polished. The man spoke next. His voice was calm, deep, and terrifyingly quiet. "My name is Mr. Kawisi." She didn't respond. "I'm taking you with me. You'll be my wife." Amara froze. "What?" Her father laughed. "You should be thanking me, girl. You think you're going to get a better offer than that? You're blind. This is your only shot." She trembled. "But I don't even know." "Him. You don't need to," Kawisi said. "You belong to me now." Amara felt the weight of something cold slide onto her finger. A ring. That night she was taken in a black SUV with tinted windows. No goodbye, no ceremony, just a trade. A blind girl for a suitcase of cash. She sat quietly in the car, heart thumping, head full of fear. She didn't cry. She had stopped crying long ago. In her mind, all she could hear was the echo of her father's words. "You belong to me now." Kawisi was not just any man. He was a billionaire, a man of power, feared by many. He owned hotels, companies, private planes, but what he didn't have was love, not the kind that was honest. He was known for women, money, and vanishing people who crossed him. When they reached his mansion, a giant estate surrounded by iron gates and silence, Amara could feel it wasn't a home. It was a cage. Days passed. Kawisi didn't speak to her much. He gave her everything: expensive clothes, food, a personal maid, but never his heart. He barely looked at her, and when he did, his eyes carried something dark, something cold. She asked one day, "Why did you choose me?" He didn't answer, but one night, weeks later, she heard a conversation between him and someone on the phone. She stood behind a wall, listening carefully. "No, I don't love her. She's blind, useless. I only married her because of the deal with her father. He owed me." Silence. "Yeah. Once the 6 months are over, I'll send her away. She'll never even know what she was used for." Her heart shattered. She covered her mouth to stop the scream. The tears she had buried for years returned, flooding her cheeks. She now knew the truth. She had been sold not for love, but as payment, like a loan returned, and what he was going to do next would break not just her heart, but maybe his own too. After that night, everything changed inside Amara. Not outside. No one noticed anything different. She still wore the soft silk dresses Kawisi gave her. She still smiled politely at the maid, still sat quietly during meals. But inside, she was drowning in silence. She had always known she was different, but now she understood she wasn't just unwanted. She was used, sold like a goat in the market. Her father saw her as a burden. Kawisi saw her as a transaction. And the world, well, the world never really saw her at all. Still, Amara didn't confront him. She had nowhere to go, no one to run to. Even if she did, where would a blind girl escape in a world built for those with eyes? But her heart burned with a quiet fire. Not hate, not revenge, just the ache of wanting to be seen, not as a deal, but as a person. Kawisi, on the other hand, carried himself as usual, cold, calm, emotionless. But something in his rhythm had changed too. He'd begun watching her when he thought she wasn't aware. He didn't speak, but sometimes she felt his eyes on her with a tension she couldn't explain. One morning during breakfast, she finally spoke. "Why don't you just send me away now?" He paused, the clink of his spoon stopping mid-air. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I heard you that night. You said I was useless, that I was part of a deal." There was silence, long and heavy. He didn't deny it. "Then why wait 6 months? What are you trying to prove?" she whispered, her hands trembling around the teacup. Kawisi got up slowly. "You weren't supposed to hear that." "But I did." He stood by the window, watching the trees sway in the garden. "It wasn't meant to be personal. Your father owed me money, a lot, and he offered you instead." She gave a small, broken laugh. "A blind girl for a billionaire's debt." "Quite a bargain." His jaw tightened. For a second, just a second, something human flashed in his voice. "I didn't expect you to matter. I just thought you'd be silent. Easy to ignore." "But I'm not easy to ignore, am I?" she said quietly. "No," he admitted. That day, for the first time, Kawisi stayed home. He didn't go to the office. Instead, he asked the maid to prepare lunch for 2 and requested Amara sit outside with him under the mango tree. They didn't talk much. But something changed. Over the following weeks, he began spending more time around her. Not in the way of a husband, not yet, but like someone trying to figure out what it meant to care. He started asking her questions. What sounds made her feel safe? What music she liked, what stories she imagined when she listened to the wind. One evening, she asked him a question back. "Why are you really like this?" Kawisi was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Because I lost everything. Once, I built myself back without emotions. They were too expensive." Amara turned her face toward his voice. "And now?" "I don't know," he said honestly. That night, as she lay in bed, she realized something terrifying. Her heart, broken and betrayed, was slowly beginning to soften toward the man who had bought her like property. And that scared her more than anything else, because love, real love, can in this house, it would only end in more heartbreak. And the worst part? She wasn't sure if her heart could survive breaking again. It was a rainy morning in Kisumba City, soft thunder rolling through the clouds, as Amara sat alone in the music room Kawisi had built but never used. She had found it by accident. Her stick tapped against the piano bench one evening while exploring the west wing of the mansion. Since then, it had become her secret haven. She couldn't play the piano properly, but she liked touching the keys, pressing them one by one, and letting the notes carry her away. Kawisi found her there one afternoon, her hands gently gliding across the keys like she could see through sound. "You play?" he asked. She flinched at his voice. "Not really, I just pretend." He walked closer but didn't sit. "You sound better than most people who try." Amara gave a soft smile, still facing forward. "Better than being invisible." That word, invisible, hung in the air like smoke. He finally sat beside her, the piano bench creaking beneath his weight. She could feel the warmth of his body near hers, but still, he didn't touch her. Kawisi didn't believe in gentle things, yet lately, around her, his presence was quieter. Not softer, but no longer sharp. "You're not invisible to me," he said, barely above a whisper. "Then why did you buy me like an object?" She shot back without hesitation. He didn't answer immediately. "I made a deal, yes, a cruel one. But I never expected you to have a soul that makes silence feel full." He stood up, walking to the far side of the room. "You confuse me, Amara. Because I'm blind? No. Because you're not afraid of me." She tilted her head. "Maybe I should be." He looked at her with something unreadable. "Maybe." Days continued to pass, and slowly something began to change between them. Not with grand gestures or dramatic scenes, but with the little things. Kawisi began eating breakfast with her every day. He started walking with her in the garden, guiding her hand gently over the roses, describing their colors, even though she couldn't see them. He told her stories of his youth, his childhood, the betrayal by his own mother, who sold him for money when he was just a boy. He told her about his rise, how he climbed from the gutters of life to become the most feared man in the city. And one day, When she sat in silence after hearing it, all she asked him softly, "So, are we both just people who got sold to survive?" Kawisi looked at her for a long time. "Yes," he said, "but you still have a heart. Mine died long ago." That night, something happened, not between them, but inside him. Kawisi stayed, up long after she went to bed. He sat in the study, drinking his whiskey in silence, staring at her wedding ring on his desk. He had taken it off earlier that day without her knowing. He stared at it like it was cursed, like it burned to touch. He called his lawyer around midnight. "Find Amara's father." The voice on the other end paused. "You want to speak to him?" "I want to destroy him," Kawisi said, voice sharp. "He gave away the only good thing he ever had." Meanwhile, Amara, in her room, touched her chest where her heart ached most. Something was pulling her toward Kawisi. Something real. Something dangerous. But she didn't know the truth yet, that Kawisi was about to uncover her father's darkest secret. And when he did, the world she was barely beginning to trust again would collapse all over again. The next morning, Kawisi wasn't at breakfast. It was the first time in weeks he hadn't shown up. Amara sat alone at the long glass table, the sound of clinking cutlery echoing too loud in a room too empty. Something felt off. "Where's Mr. Kawisi?" she asked the maid. The maid hesitated. "He left early, said he had urgent business in Kisumba." Amara's heart dropped. Kisumba, the place she had spent her entire life trying to forget. The place where she was nothing but a blind girl no one cared to raise. The word alone made her stomach twist. She spent the whole day restless, touching her wedding ring, trying to make sense of the mess inside her chest. She knew she shouldn't feel anything for Kawisi. He bought her, lied to her, used her. But he was also the only person who had ever seen her. Not her blindness, not her weakness, just her that night. She waited in the music room, fingers pressing soft notes on the piano, hoping the sounds would distract her from the fear growing in her gut. But what Kawisi was doing at that very moment would change everything. He had arrived. In Kisumba, in silence, escorted by 3 black jeeps, bodyguards trailing behind. The villagers peeped through cracked windows and half-closed doors. No one dared to come outside. When he reached the broken-down house where Amara once lived, he found her father, drunk as usual, sitting in the dust like the years had swallowed him. Kawisi didn't speak at first. He just stood there, looking at the man who had traded his own daughter for money. "You remember me?" Kawisi asked. The old man looked up, squinting. You're the rich one, the one who took my girl." Kawisi's eyes narrowed. "Took? You sold her?" He laughed, bitterly. "She was blind. What else was I supposed to do? She was eating my money, giving nothing back." Kawisi clenched his fists. "You think she's worthless? She's blind. What future she got, huh?" "I gave her a life. You should be thanking me." Kawisi stepped forward slowly, his voice low and dangerous. "She's worth more than every coin you've ever begged for in your miserable life." Then he threw a folder on the table beside the drunk man. It was filled with documents. Bank, transfers, signed agreements, and a shocking piece of truth. Amara's mother was still alive. "You told her she died in childbirth," Kawisi said coldly. The man looked up, his face changing. What? "You lied. You sold Amara, and you lied to her about everything." Kawisi leaned closer. "Her mother left you because you beat her, because you threatened to hurt the baby. She ran to save herself. You told the whole village she died and raised Amara in darkness." The man trembled, stuttering, but Kawisi wasn't done. "She's been living all her life thinking no one wanted her, that her mother died. That you were the only family she had, and now I find out you chose to ruin her from the beginning." He stepped back. "You're filth." He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. But the power in his voice made even the bodyguard step back. Kawisi turned around and left the man broken and alone, surrounded by his own guilt and empty bottles. On the ride back, he couldn't stop thinking about Amara's face. The way she smiled softly when the sunlight warmed her skin. The way she tilted her head when listening to music, like she was hearing more than just notes. She had survived all that cruelty, and she still had a heart. But now, he had to tell her the truth. That, everything she believed about her past, was a lie, and the woman she thought was gone forever was still out there, waiting. When Kawisi returned, it was just after sunset. The sky was burning orange, but inside the mansion everything was quiet. The staff knew not to ask questions. They saw the way his jaw was clenched, the way he moved with heaviness in his steps, like he was carrying something too painful to speak of. Amara was in the garden, sitting near the water fountain, her fingers trailing along its cool marble edge. She didn't turn when she heard his footsteps. She didn't need to. She always knew. When it was him. "You went to Kisumba," she said softly. "Yes," he replied. She nodded once, her heart sinking. "You saw him?" Kawisi sat beside her, not too close. "I did." She waited, her hands shaking slightly. "Did he say anything about me?" There was a long silence. "He said what I already knew," Kawisi replied. "That he never deserved." "You," Amara clenched her hands. "He never cared." "That's not all," he continued. "There's something else." She turned her face to him slowly. "What?" He hesitated. This was the moment everything could change. He could lie, protect her from the truth. But she deserved more than lies. She'd lived in enough darkness already. "Your mother." He began. "She's alive." Amara didn't breathe. For a few seconds she thought she heard wrong. "What?" "She didn't die. Your father lied. She left because he hurt her. She ran to save her life. And yours." Tears began to stream down her cheeks before she even realized it. Her lips trembled. No, that can't be true. He told me. She died giving birth to me. He said it was my fault." Kawisi shook his head. "It was never your fault. He lied to control you." Her breath came in shallow gasps. "Where is she now?" "I'm trying to find her," he said gently. "I've already sent people. We'll know soon." Amara broke. Right there in the garden, beneath the dimming sky, she cried for everything she had lost. Not just a mother, but a childhood that could have been full of love, a family that should have protected her, a truth that was stolen from her before she even had a voice to question it. Kawisi didn't say anything. He just moved closer, placing his hand gently over hers. She didn't pull away this time. She held onto it like it was the only solid thing in a world full of shifting lies. "Why are you doing this?" she asked through her tears. "Why do you care now?" He didn't answer at first. His voice, when it finally came, was low and raw. "Because for the first time in my life, I see someone more broken than me, and I want to protect her." She turned her face to him. "Even though you were part of the pain?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, and I'll carry that shame for the rest of my life." The days that followed were quiet, not empty, but healing. Kawisi was different now. He didn't try to buy her silence with gifts or distract her with luxuries. He was present. He walked with her, sat with her, listened to her. And for the first time since she had arrived at the mansion, Amara felt something she never thought she would. Safety. Not because of the walls or guards or wealth, but because the man who once bought her was finally learning what it meant to love her. But deep in her heart she still feared one thing. What would happen when her mother was found? Would she still need Kawisi? Or would that be the day she walked away? Forever. It was 2 weeks later when Kawisi walked into the music room, holding a single envelope in his hand. Amara was seated at the piano, as always, playing softly, humming under her breath. She turned her head when she felt his presence. "You found her, didn't you?" she asked without needing to be told. He didn't answer immediately, just walked over and placed the envelope on the piano. "She lives in Kibamba now. It's a small village near the border. She's remarried. Has a small tailoring shop. Her name is still Nia. Your mother never changed it." Amara's breath caught in her throat. For years the name Nia had been a ghost, something she imagined in her dreams, something she whispered in her prayers. Now it was real, alive, breathing somewhere out there. "She thought you were dead." Kawisi continued gently. "He told her you died after she ran. She's been mourning you for 19 years. Amara reached out with shaking fingers, touching the envelope. Inside were photos. A woman with soft brown skin, eyes just like hers, standing in front of a small shop. She looked older, yes, but full of sorrow and strength. "I want to see." "Her," Amara said. Her voice didn't shake this time. "I'll take you," he said, and 3 days later, they did just that. The journey to Kibamba was long. Amara sat quietly in the back of the car, her fingers locked tightly together, her heart pounding. Kawisi didn't speak much either. He kept glancing at her through the rearview mirror, watching her chest rise and fall, knowing this moment was bigger than either of them. When they arrived, the village was quiet, dusty, and peaceful. Children played in the distance. Birds chirped lazily. And there, just ahead, stood a small tailoring shop with faded yellow paint and a handmade sign. Nia's needles. Kawisi got out first, helped Amara step onto the dirt path. She held tightly to his arm, not because she couldn't walk alone, but because her legs were betraying her now, shaking with every step. They stood in front of the shop, and Kawisi knocked on the doorframe. Woman appeared, mid-40s, her hands stained with fabric dye, eyes tired but warm. When she saw Amara, her body froze. She didn't speak. She didn't move. But her eyes began to fill with tears. Kawisi leaned down and whispered to Amara, "She's here, right in front of you." Amara stepped forward slowly, blindly reaching, into the air. "Mama?" That single word cracked the silence wide open. Nia let out a sob, covering her mouth. "Amara, my baby, my sweet baby." Amara reached out again. "I can't see you. Please, touch me." And Nia rushed forward, wrapping her arms around her daughter, holding her like something she had lost in a storm, and finally found. Again, they both wept, loud, gut-wrenching cries that the village could hear. "I thought you were gone," Nia cried. "I thought I'd never hold you again." "He told me you died," Amara whispered. "He made me believe it was my fault." "No. No, never," her mother sobbed. "I left to save you. I wanted to come back. But he said you died." Kawisi stood quietly nearby, eyes lowered. He had power, money, everything, but in that moment he realized this. This was love. Real love. The kind he had never had. Amara held her mother tight, trembling. "Mama, I need you, but I also—" She paused. Kawisi looked up, his heart already preparing for the blow. "I also love someone else now," she said softly. Nia looked confused. "Who?" Amara turned toward Kawisi, her voice full of pain and truth. "The man who once bought me, but who later gave me back everything I had lost." And in that moment, Kawisi's heart cracked open too, because sometimes redemption doesn't come with grand apologies or second chances. Sometimes it walks slowly, step by step, hand in hand with someone who chooses to love you despite everything you were. Amara spent 3 full days in Kibamba with her mother. The small home, with its thin walls and warm smells of fresh bread and fabric glue, felt more like home in hours than Kawisi's giant mansion ever had. She laughed with Nia, cried in her arms, asked all the questions that had lived like thorns in her heart for years. "Why didn't you come back for me?" she whispered once. Nia cupped her face, her voice trembling. "Because I thought I'd bring you more danger. And because he told me you were gone. I couldn't fight what I didn't know. I mourned you every day." Amara held her tighter. "We've both lived in lies." Back in the mansion, Kawisi waited. He didn't call, didn't pressure, didn't ask her to come back. But every morning, he sat at the same dining table. 2 cups of tea in front of him. Hers would go cold, but he left it there anyway, just in case. He had given her everything he could. Now the decision wasn't his, it was hers. And then on the 4th day, she came back. The staff didn't expect her. Neither did Kawisi. He was in the study, head low, staring at the documents of the empire he built. So much wealth, yet so little. Warmth, until now. He heard the soft knock on the door and stood quickly. "Amara." She walked in slowly, guided by the maid who'd grown fond of her. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied back, face calm but unreadable. "I didn't come back because I had nowhere else to go," she said. "I came because something's unfinished." Kawisi stepped forward. "Tell me." She tilted her head toward his voice. "I've been thinking. You changed. You gave me my truth back, my mother, my dignity." He opened his mouth to speak, but she raised her hand gently to stop him. "But I also know who you were, and I can't pretend that pain never existed. You bought me, Kawisi. I was a transaction." He nodded slowly, eyes heavy. "I know. But the man standing in front of me now isn't the same man who made that deal." He looked up, something in his chest rising. "I won't pretend it didn't happen. I won't erase the hurt. But I'm choosing to move forward with my eyes closed, and still trust you," she said, her voice breaking. "Because that's what real forgiveness is." Kawisi's lips parted. He hadn't expected it. Not truly. Redemption was a word he never thought would be his. "Are you sure?" he whispered. She smiled softly. "I may be blind, but I've never seen anyone more clearly than I see you now." He stepped forward and took her hands in his. "I won't fail you again," he said, voice trembling. They didn't kiss. Not yet. Love like theirs didn't need grand romance. It needed rebuilding, slowly, brick by brick. That evening she sat at the piano again, and he sat beside her, not as her captor, not as her savior, but as a man willing to earn her, piece by piece. Outside the mansion, the sky turned a soft gold, and for the first time in their shared silence, peace was louder than pain. 2 months passed, and the world slowly settled into a new rhythm. Amara no longer lived in silence. Though her eyes remained blind, her life had never been more clear. She moved freely through the mansion now, her cane still in hand, but her fear gone. The servants no longer treated her like a guest. They smiled at her, talked to her, laughed with her. She wasn't the blind girl anymore. She was Madame Amara Kawisi, a name she hadn't fully embraced yet, but one that now carried more respect than pity. Kawisi, for his part, had changed in ways no one expected. He no longer barked orders. He said please. He said thank you. He stopped hosting lavish parties and started investing in programs for disabled children in rural villages. The first one he funded? A school for blind kids. He named it Naya House, in honor of Amara's mother. It wasn't for show. It wasn't for redemption. It was for her, and she knew it. But even with all the healing, there was still one wound left to face. Her father. Amara requested it one evening while they were having dinner on the garden patio. "I want to go see him," she said quietly. Kawisi froze. "Why?" "I need to finish the story," she replied. "I need to see the man who gave me away and walk away from him on my own terms." Kawisi didn't argue. The next morning they drove to Kisumba. Her father was older now, sicker, thinner. The alcohol had hollowed his body, but his shame had already eaten his soul. When Amara stood at the doorway, he looked up slowly, as if seeing a ghost. "Amara," he croaked. I didn't think you'd ever—" "I'm not here for apologies," she said calmly. "I'm here to forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I do." He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes, too broken to speak. "You told me my mother died," she continued. "You made me believe I was worthless. You stole my childhood, and I lived every day thinking I wasn't enough." He lowered his head. "But I still rose. I still found love. I still found her. And I am more than anything you ever tried to break." She turned, not needing a response, not needing closure. Some stories don't end with peace. They end with walking away. She left him, sitting there, alone with his past. Back at the mansion that evening, Kawisi had something in his hand. A small black box. Amara was in the garden again, listening to the wind. He knelt beside her quietly and placed the box in her hand. "I know you already wear my ring," he said gently. "But this one is different." She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a new ring, simpler, no diamonds. Just a small gold band with the words "I choose you" carved inside in braille. She touched the engraving with her fingertips, tears flooding her eyes. "You once bought me," she whispered. "Now you offer me a choice." He nodded. "And I'll wait for your answer, as long as it takes." She smiled, placing the ring gently back in the box. "You already have it," she said, her voice soft. "You had it the day you gave me back my freedom. He exhaled shakily and took her hand. And for the first time, not as a buyer and a bride, not as strangers linked by a cruel deal, but as two souls who had burned and survived, they kissed, not to claim, but to honor. The blind girl who was sold into silence had found her voice, and the billionaire who thought he could buy anything finally learned what it meant to be worthy of love, not by power, but by truth.